One day she said to me after we had realized that the two of us had fallen in love, she said, you know, this could get you in some real trouble, you know, and that, you know, press is going to be all over you.
When music icon Cher married Southern rock legend Gregg Allman in the 1970s, the world was caught off guard. The unlikely pair set the stage for one of the most unpredictable and passionate celebrity marriages of the era. Their whirlwind romance, fueled by intense love but burdened by addiction and clashing personalities, was as chaotic as it was captivating.
I wanted to ask you about Cher, and well, all of a sudden, because Gregg Allman, you didn't hear a lot about Gregg Allman for a while. Then all of a sudden he marries Cher, and boom.
Though their marriage lasted only a few years, it left an unforgettable mark on both their lives and careers. Now, having passed away at the age of 69, secrets as to why it never worked with Cher are out. Join us as we take a look at their whirlwind romance, wedding, and subsequent split, which hid some deep personal secrets. Chaotic partner. No one could have foreseen the chaos that would ensue when pop and television queen Cher and Southern rock superstar Gregg Allman first crossed paths. The year was 1975, a time when disco craze was at its peak, and one of the most surprising celebrity couples ever formed was reportedly involved. If polar opposites indeed attract, then Gregg and Cher were like superimposed magnets. The legendary Cher-Sonny Bono team, responsible for smash tunes like I Got You Babe and weekly doses of sequins on TV, had recently parted ways. She was prepared to embark on her next chapter, newly single, but then along came Gregg. The heartfelt lead singer of the Allman Brothers Band exemplified rock and roll defiance. His voice could make you cry into your scotch. He was the opposite of Sonny Bono. They were like champagne and moonshine, a heady cocktail that, when combined, defied logic but had the desired effect. They hit it off right away and had incredible chemistry that got them so infatuated, they married shortly after meeting. They basically skipped the whole "are we sure about this" phase and jumped to "I do." Still, it seemed like they were in a NASCAR race, with all the red flags flying at their wedding. One of the reasons to date for some time, before skipping to marriage, is to properly get to know your partner. When you don't, then you learn new things on the fly. Gregg, for example, never mentioned that he was struggling with substance abuse at the time of the wedding, a fact that he later acknowledged. Just as Cher was emerging from an oppressive relationship, she appeared to be exchanging one set of difficulties for another. In contrast to Sonny's order and structure, Gregg embodied denim-clad chaos. Did Cher think she could rescue him when she plunges into what can only be described as a love minefield? Or was she captivated by the excitement? The truth was somewhere in the middle, and it was in an interview with Gregg from their early days together that clued us in. He had finally worked up the nerve to tell her the truth one morning after waking up, and although most people would have fled at that point, Cher remained steadfast. Her reaction completely surprised him. She simply asked what the solution was. As any viewer of rock biopics can attest, kicking a habit is easier said than done. But the couple did their best to take on Gregg's habit together. She was unexpectedly supportive and frankly overjoyed by his honesty. Unfortunately, while being forthright always paid dividends, it wasn't always enough to sustain a relationship. Somewhere along the road, it all just fell apart. The ink on their marriage certificate hadn't even dried before their relationship started to unravel faster than a cheap sweater. Just 9 days in, and the next week we heard that Cher filed for divorce. The problem here was, despite his honesty about his drug abuse problem, it wasn't enough to put it in perspective for Cher.
I mean, the actors are staggering. The guy that plays Gregory Gregg
Allman.
Allman, yeah.
I was sitting kind of in the back because I didn't want to make a big scene, which I ended up making a big scene anyway.
Just how bad his problem was. It turns out that his love affair with narcotics was a lot more dedicated than his relationship with reality. After their hurried wedding, Gregg would vanish for days on end, lost in a haze of his habits. Meanwhile, Cher was left twiddling her perfectly manicured thumbs, wondering if she'd married a man or Houdini. The abandonment stung deeply, and it didn't take long for her patience to run out. 9 days after the I Do, she filed for divorce. In his memoir, My Cross to Bear, Gregg subsequently confesses to waking up one morning to find that Cher had packed her bags and ghosted him. No message, no teary goodbye, just the cold, hard understanding that his behavior had driven away one of the most legendary women in the world. It was then that the seriousness of his deeds really hit him. Desperate to get back the marriage he had fumbled, he did the only thing he could think of, and that was to beg. And shockingly, she agreed. Second chances. One wonder why Cher would stay when she had the option to have any man on earth with just a hint. Well, it wasn't merely Gregg's handsome good looks or his obvious musical ability, as she claims in her books and interviews. As Cher put it, their bond was intense and magnetic, like two celestial entities in orbit around one another. It was her deepest wish that he would be able to overcome his struggles and that their love could save him from going over the edge. Unfortunately, it was a fairy tale wish that couldn't meet up to reality. Things remained unchanged despite their best efforts, and the shadow of his problems lingered over their relationship. Cher did her best to persevere, but the pressure eventually got to her. Being with someone who wasn't willing to change was emotionally draining, and she knew that no amount of brilliance or charisma could compensate. Even rock stars may experience heartbreak, and Cher proved that when she finally walked away. Interestingly enough, Cher describes their breakup a bit differently, something she only revealed very recently. Cher's side of the story. Cher says Gregg broke up with her in a note because he felt a fool when she reunited with ex-Sonny Bono for work. The 78-year-old singer discussed her marriage to the Allman Brothers band member in her upcoming book Cher the Memoir, Part 1. She also revealed that her ex-husband, Sonny Bono, had issues when she returned to work with him. Cher learned she was expecting a child in 1976, just before the premiere of the new Sonny and Cher program. Upon hearing the news, Gregg disregarded her story and vowed never to meet her again after his return to Los Angeles. In response to Cher's new show with Bono, the singer allegedly expressed his frustration that the tabloids were creating a juicy new love triangle involving the three of them. It was then that she discovered that read, "I have two choices, either go back to Macon and be heartbroken and lonely, or stay here and be made a fool of, the latter of which I just can't do because I'm a man, and a damn good one." He went on to say that he truly desired the ability to live with being a fool, but couldn't. Elijah Blue Allman was born to Cher and Gregg in 1976, while they were married. The couple decided to merge their skills for an album, and it was perhaps this collaboration that finally showed incompatible they had become. To the Hard Way was the name of the couple's ambitious but doomed record, in which they combined their musical abilities. The original intention behind its release as Allman and Woman was for Cher's pop skills and his bluesy southern rock background to harmonize. In concept, it was daring, but in execution, it was a disaster. To the Hard Way was savaged by critics, who didn't only dislike it, but berated it harshly. The headlines reading, "The bottom of the barrel after a long fall for Gregg," and "More of the same for Cher" from Rolling Stones, was something that deeply impacted both of them. Getting a harsh 0-star rating from the magazine is like being booed off stage while your mic is still on in the music industry and others weren't any nicer. While Cher's fans weren't prepared for her foray into Southern rock, fans of the Allman Brothers Band weren't happy about their rock hero collaborating with a pop diva. Critics began to point out the obvious problem with the performer's lack of chemistry, and called the record a vanity project because of its lack of musical substance. The album's commercial failure was bad enough, but also reflected the discord in their marriage. The animosity between them was evident both on and off the record. Instead of bringing them closer together, the creative partnership just served to highlight their differences. Before long, both their relationship and To the Hard Way floundered like a fish out of water. Their personalities clashed, and the demands of fame, habits, and hardships were too much to bear. How they broke up isn't the only thing Cher had to reveal. In fact, there's something even more hidden from before they got married. Cher allegedly terminated her pregnancy. Gregg Allman was Cher's second husband, and in the days following their wedding, Cher hinted that she had an abortion. In Cher, the memoir, the first book of her recently released two-part autobiography, the 78-year-old pop queen revealed details about her romantic life. Back when they exchanged vows in their Las Vegas wedding ceremony that was arranged within a few days, she found out she was expecting, and she married him on the spur of the moment. Despite Cher's assistance in his recovery, she found white powder among his possessions the morning after the wedding. Without explicitly saying what she did, she stated, "I had to make a choice, and I knew what it was," after considering her husband's relapse into drug use and her personal concerns about the impact of the pregnancy on her profession. Cher was left with a depressing feeling of foreboding regarding their relationship when Gregg and she were required to be in separate cities for work the day after their wedding. She expressed her belief that she did not see a future with him in her writing. His possession of the DOP kit that morning, which included a plastic bag full of white powder, only served to heighten her suspicions. She said, "I believe that when something like that happens, it tests the strength of a relationship, and ours was not strong," adding that her father was also struggling with heroin addiction. Afterwards, Cher paid a visit to her doctor, with whom she had become friends after managing her miscarriages and the birth of her first child, Chaz Bono, with her ex-husband, Sonny Bono. While examining her, he found ovarian cysts and assured her that he could go ahead and take care of them. She'd known him for a long time. He would have told her that she had cysts if they were harmful and needed to be removed. When he gave it to them as an option, she understood pretty much what he meant. Cher recalls thinking about how she'd had to be on bed rest when she was pregnant with Chaz and couldn't go in a car for 4 months, except for checkup appointments. On Monday, she had to be at her workplace. She admits that she should have been dancing and singing, but she was, after all, responsible for taking care of my mother, sister, and child. She knew she had to make a choice, and she knew what it was. She added, "It made it tougher that I didn't have Gregory to talk to about it, but I made my decision, and I was so grateful to my doctor's compassion for giving me one." Life after the divorce. One thing we do know about Cher, though, is that no matter what, she always manages to come back even stronger than before. As for Gregg, their romance was but a footnote in the incredible tale of rock and roll's past until he finally discovered sobriety in his latter years. Aside from the obvious, maybe don't marry someone after 6 dates, the story's moral is this: love has magical powers, but it can't solve all your problems. No matter how much you love another person, you must put your own needs first sometimes, because relationships need effort. Few celebrity romances can compare to Cher and Gregg Allman's in terms of intensity, passion, and total unpredictability. Fans were clinging to their pearls, while reviewers were left bewildered by the tornado of passion, drama, and musical innovations that was their union. It was a full-scale tug-of-war, with attorneys on speed dial if love were a battlefield. Let's go back to 1977, when Cher and Gregg's relationship was already on the brink of disaster. Gregg Allman was the soulful, long-haired lead singer of the Allman Brothers Band, and Cher had already established herself as the goddess of pop from that era. Their realities were completely dissimilar. Contraries attract, but in this instance, they also explode. Cher and Gregg may have been different people, but they were inseparable in the eyes of their son, Elijah Blue Allman. For Cher, motherhood was non-negotiable. She was hell-bent on providing Elijah with the rock-solid foundation she had never had growing up. One parent is a global pop queen, and the other is a struggling rock artist with substance abuse. The result is a home that is anything but stable, unfortunately. Cher and Gregg's romance was so dramatic that it might have been a whole reality TV season.
And all of a sudden, I couldn't make a move. I couldn't go out in the front lawn and wash my car without people being over the gate, man.
Their ups and downs were straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. Although their marriage was short-lived, it provided us with memorable experiences and a single forgettable album, the things that Gregg Allman has now admitted. For a little self-reflection, the rock star traded in his leather coats as he got older. The lead singer of the Allman Brothers Band was very forthcoming in interviews, and his autobiography, My Cross to Bear, about his troubled marriage to Cher and the regrets that weighed heavily on him, in addition to his wild rock and roll days. When asked about his time spent with Cher, he was forthright. Among his most startling revelations was that, from the very beginning, he thought their marriage was doomed to fail. He always knew that he was unable to love Cher the way she deserved because of his struggles with substance abuse. He said, "I didn't know how to love her while fighting my own demons." Not often do you hear a rock artist admit they are emotionally unavailable, but Gregg didn't end there. He also recognized that their worlds were just too different to ever really blend. Red carpets and lavish Hollywood parties were Cher's daily reality. Gregg, in contrast, flourished in the raw mayhem of touring life, what with all the late-night jam sessions and excessive drinking. In their private lives, he felt like he had been transported to another planet, or even the Beverly Hills, and Cher was sick of his crazy antics. He was deeply uneasy about her lavish lifestyle in Hollywood. While they were together in Beverly Hills, he realized how true it was that he felt like a fish out of water in her world. He moved like a linebacker evading paparazzi while she effortlessly glowed in the limelight. He felt stifled by the relentless public scrutiny and had no desire to mix with Cher's famous A-listers. He was made for the rock and roll lifestyle, and Cher had a hard time adjusting. Thinking about those draining late-night jam sessions and all the bandmates and roadies made her feel out of place and uncomfortable. You would have thought they lived on other planets, based on the dissimilarity between their social groups. Gregg was drinking beer with his bandmates in a cheap tavern off the freeway as Cher sipped champagne with Hollywood elite. Then there was the most cringe-worthy comment, the one that everyone remembers. Gregg confided in an interview saying, "We had our good times, we had our bad times. We were just different in a whole number of ways. Honestly, I'm relieved that she never once wanted my opinion on her singing. Truly, I'm sorry, but she's just not very talented in that area." Some thought it was a needless insult, while others just saw him being Gregg, the unfiltered all the way. However, A guy burdened with profound remorse lay beneath all the bluster and candor. Among his most devastating revelations was one of his life's worst blunders, which was breaking up with Cher. He later confessed, "I wish I had been a better husband," when thinking back on the relationship that he let slip. Gregg didn't realize the full extent of his loss until after it had happened. He and Cher were still emotionally scarred from their marriage. Although Cher never addressed Gregg in public, the few times she did, it was always with a combination of affection and frustration. Decades after they split up, their relationship was still a knot of tangled feelings. Many wonder if she ever forgave him after they finally split. When she did finally speak, the words came out like an image of a love caught in the midst of tiredness. She stated that she sincerely loved Gregg, but couldn't save him from himself. She admitted at one point that she was just tired, due to the mental and emotional strain of attempting to help someone struggling with substance abuse, while also attending to her own professional and personal responsibilities. Attempting to act as a therapist to your unhappy husband while you're a worldwide icon is no small feat. Let's jump ahead to the year 2017. His deep music and tangled relationship with her will live on even after his death. Cher shocked everyone with a touching homage. She expressed her inability to find the right words on social media as she stated that she adored him. Somehow, the love's still there after all the tragedy and heartache. Even though their relationship was as rocky as the Grand Canyon, Cher showed up to Gregg's funeral, demonstrating that there was real affection between them. Perhaps her forgiving him is overstating the case. But perhaps the most important thing is to just acknowledge that their love was genuine, despite its flaws and complexities. What do you think of Gregg and Cher Whirlwind Rom? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.